BTB listeners, thank you so much for checking out today's episode. Listen, if this episode inspires you, do me a favor and take 5 seconds to shoot me a like and subscribe to the podcast. There are several more exciting guests that are in the pipeline, and I just can't thank you enough for your continued support, and let's keep paying the mission forward.
Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you, baby.
Welcome to the BTB Project, designed to empower listeners to identify their why and to live their best lives no matter the circumstances. My name is Coleman Gerhardt, a former athlete and motivational coach. I've had the opportunity to inspire thousands through my story and help accomplish what they are built to be. You'll be encouraged by each and every episode, and let's get into it.
Yeah, when I blow up, I'ma soar high like Peter Pan. In real life, be living out my dreams. If I'm waking up, it's in a foreign land.
I have another full circle moment today on the BTB Project because I'm just incredibly infatuated with the underdog story, with people that I've come across in my life that not only have this ability to persevere, but do it in such a beautiful, eloquent way that just inspires the heck out of me. And for the listeners today, I bring a guest that's someone that I know very well, someone that I've got to coach, be a friend with, do life with. And I believe her story will not only inspire you, but it will allow you to do things that you never thought you could do. And with that said, I want to bring one of the great Colorado tennis players to the BTB Project, Miss Claire Cox. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Hi, everyone.
Well, first of all, thank you for taking time out of your precious life. I would love for you to start on catching up the listeners on what life looks like for you. I know that high school tennis, when I bring that up, was in some cases many moons ago, but here you are a few years removed, and I'd love for you to open us up with what you're up to and where you're living about these days.
These days, I am in Dallas, Texas. Been here for a little over a year. I am out here working for Charles Schwab in wealth advisory. I don't get to hit too many tennis balls these days, but it is a part of my life that I will always hold near and dear, and still is something I get to enjoy on occasion. I'm looking to get back into it soon, hoping to join the league or something, but I think very fondly of my years in tennis.
Yeah. And not only should you be, but I just can't wait for you to provide some of the perspective that you have from what some of those moments meant to you in high school tennis, what they mean to you now, how you got to those moments. To start, it's ironic because both you and I got to spend a lot of time in Parker, Colorado, where I grew up. And somehow, some way, I end up at a Colorado Tennis Hall of Fame induction. And it was for one of my former coaches at the University of Northern Colorado, Brenda Vlasic. And as I'm at a bunch of these round tables and looking at all these tennis geeks, I turn my back. And as I turn my back, there's this guy sitting behind me who's Gary Seymour. And Gary Seymour was, and still is, I believe, one of the directors of tennis there at the Pinery Country Club. And at the time, I was kind of in between some opportunities on the tennis side. And he asked what I was up to. And I said, well, what are you thinking? And he's, you should come to the Pinery. And it shocked me because here I am. I grew up at Parker. I grew up in the Pinery. And how in the world am I going to go back and teach moms of the kids that I grew up with? Right. So I was able to have that conversation, able to come back. And I remember the first group that I ever did was this big ladies group. Right. And this ladies group ended up having your mom in it. And slowly but surely, before she stopped playing the game of tennis. But, you know, when I think of how I got back to Parker, and I think of Parker tennis in general, when I think of Ponderosa High School, there's actually kind of a Mount Rushmore of unbelievable tennis players that I believe fit on that mountain. And I'm going to name a few of those for you. And I want to get your perspective on it. One of them is who we both know, Kellen D'Amico, junior Wimbledon champion, guy I was fortunate enough to have on the podcast, unbelievable career at Texas, unbelievable tennis career in general, and happens to have tremendous family ties to you. And it's remarkable. Another one that was really neat was a few weeks ago. I go to a 50th birthday celebration for Jeff Salzenstein, another Colorado tennis icon. And I sit next to this guy, and his name is Andy Zerker. Andy Zerker was an individual state champion at Ponderosa. He was a walk-on at Notre Dame, ended up being an All-American and going on the ATP tour and being top 300 in the world. Ponderosa High School. Girls like Erin Sanders, obviously state champion, awesome, fantastic. But right up there is Claire Cox. And I believe Claire Cox is up there because, one, Ponderosa, I know you're part of some great teams. We're going to talk about it. Individually, to be able to do what you did to win a state championship is not something very common. It usually happens at a Cherry Creek. It usually happens at a Fairview. We all know the big players here. What does it mean to you to know as a state champion, you're part of the caliber of those types of individuals?
Extremely flattered to start off. I don't know that I would put myself in the same category, but honestly, it came from just a place of sheer determination and wanting to be a champion and wanting to be better than a Cherry Creek and wanting to be better than a Fairview, and being tired of hearing those names over and over again and letting them run the show untested by the underdog, which I always considered myself to be. I used to call myself the comeback queen on the tennis court, and I still do, because my favorite place to be in a tennis match was behind with an unsuspecting girl on the other side of the net that had no idea how much willpower I had. And I was probably outbeat on the talent side of things more times than I can count. But the one thing that I could control was my mental game. And I knew every time I stepped onto a tennis court that I was going to beat the other girl across the net for me on the mental side. And that is why and how I won a lot of the matches that I did.
Yeah, I think that mindset that you had is almost like an alter ego. I've talked about alter egos a lot on the podcast. I had an alter ego when I played. And it's something that you almost have to have, especially in a singles realm, because you and I both know out there, it can be vicious. I mean, some of the gals you were playing against wanted to not only beat you in tennis, but maybe punch you in the face afterwards. I mean, it's just like, it's just crazy, some of the tension and hostility that I saw in those moments. But let's draw it back a little bit to how you were able to develop that, because growing up, I know that you were around tennis, you were around that country club environment with golf and things like that. But to this day, I really don't know exactly, how did tennis start for Claire Cox?
So actually, that's an interesting story. My parents had us try a number of different sports, and I think with 3 kids, they had kind of hoped we'd spread ourselves out a little bit amongst different sports. But we went to a group kids tennis drill at the Pinery, where Judy was the coach of that drill. After the drill, she pulled my parents to the side and she said, "I see some potential in Claire and I'd love to be her coach." And that was what kind of started off the private lessons and the really taking things more seriously side of things. Was just Judy noticed something in me that she saw some potential and wanted to see where we could take that. And that was when we kind of booked my first private lesson. And I think from there, it just took a life of its own. I've always been a competitive person, but having that type of specific mindset does start, I truly believe, with a coach, and with that coach helping you develop the mindset of a champion. And I've always said that my tennis career has been very heavily, and even my personal life has been very heavily shaped by the coaches that I've had and the lessons that they've taught me over time. And it started with Judy. I mean, she was a very intense person,
Yeah.
and she was a no nonsense person,
Mm-mm.
and was strict on the tennis court that if you were there for an hour, you better put in work for that hour. And I just got lucky in that was my very first one-on-one coaching experience. So she sort of started shaping the mold that all of my coaches helped create over the course of my tennis career.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, coaches, mentors, people we come across in our life, to be able to reflect on that and to see how it shapes us today. It absolutely makes sense how some of these character traits that you possess today come from others. And I just remember the first time that I got to meet you. It was you, your brother, your sister, a couple other folks there in the Parker tennis community on the junior side. I think it was like during the summertime. I essentially go to this practice, and I get a heads up from Gary, like, hey, there's these 3 Cox kids. The oldest one's real smart. The younger one's the tennis junkie, and the middle one is kind of smart and kind of tennis junkie, but I'm not sure. Like, I just remember being excited to, first of all, be back in a community where my experience as a tennis player wasn't the greatest. I was kind of that kid where I wasn't projected to be this amazing tennis player. I didn't have a lot of hype by any stretch of the imagination. So when I initially heard that feedback, my antenna was up for all 3 of you guys, no matter what the information was, right? And I immediately was drawn to your game because what I saw was somebody that had a tremendous amount of skill set and talent, but you, in that moment, I mean, maybe middle school, and you're probably looking for some confidence. You're probably looking for identity. I'm a dad of daughters, and I'm seeing this happen with them right now. And I'm like, man, I just want to do everything I can to be there for this person. I don't want to coach at Claire. I want to coach with Claire. So knowing the context of how I wanted to approach getting to know you in your game, do you remember the first time that you or your parents or, it came up that like, hey, we should try a lesson with this Coleman guy and see what happens? Do you remember the first lesson?
I've spent so many hours on a tennis court.
Yeah.
I can remember very few lessons and things specifically.
Yep.
I remember the overall strategy you took with your coaching, which was very much pointed towards the mental side and squaring that side first before you get into the technical piece of it. I think you did very genuinely focus on aligning the heart and the body, not just, okay, let me pinpoint and nitpick the technical pieces of the game that need work, but what can I do to evolve the mind to where it's easier to adjust other things? You have the baseline that you need to quickly take feedback and implement that feedback, where you have the mindset to keep your game intact when things are getting hard, when you're getting frustrated, when you're getting physically tired. And you were the first tennis coach that ever gave me homework. I remember that.
Like,
It
why
was
is this guy giving me homework? Come on.
it was write these things down. It was watch this video and tell me your thoughts on it. It was look up this quote and let's talk about what that meant to you. And those pieces, I feel like, created an environment where I was thinking about tennis outside of that
Mm.
hour or so that we were practicing. And I think that that really helped me feel overall like I am a tennis player, not I am a person who plays tennis. And that's more so what I remember than than our first practice. I would love to. I'm sure I didn't move my feet. I would love to hear about the first practice.
I don't know why it's such a vivid memory, but I don't remember everything because I've been able to come across a lot of folks and I'm very fortunate for that. But what I do remember in that first lesson was I didn't really know if you wanted anything to do with anything that I had to say. And I say that graciously because little bit stubborn, little bit hard to read, little bit guarded, right? And I share that in this context is it's about maybe a year or two before that moment. I'm an assistant coach at Regis Jesuit, and it's my first year there. I was coaching a girl that was a number 3 singles player. Her name was Kate Carroll, and she was considered this uncoachable player. The head coach of the team said, I got nothing for this girl. You're the new guy. I want you to take her on. And every single practice and every single match, I decided to take on a totally different approach than I usually do, which is I'm going to listen first. I'm not going to say first. I'm not going to tell at them. I'm going to listen. And I'll tell you what, Claire, for the entire part of her season, and she was a tremendous player. She hadn't won a state title at that point, but going into her senior year, she had a good chance to maybe win one at 4A. We get all the way to the state match, and she's down a set and 4-1. And she comes to the fence. And this whole season, I just listened. And she finally said, Coach, I need your help. She started crying. And I said, Kate, I'm happy to help you. And I appreciate you asking me, but it required me to understand you before I could ever tell you how I can help. And then she's like, well, tell me how to help me. Like, I'm down a set and 4-1. How am I going to come back? And you remember those tough matches against Cheyenne Mountain. I know you guys played them a few times, and that's who she had in the final. Kate comes back and wins in 3 sets. And I share that story because before we hopped on, I told you about my son, and we were at that running camp in Stanford, and I get this call a couple months ago from Kate's dad. Hadn't heard from her in a while. She was a trauma nurse at St. Joe's here in Denver, and she unfortunately passed away. Young gal, and tragic, and it just brings me so much, not only emotion, but it makes me reflect more on you and I's journey, because if I didn't have a Kate Carroll in my life, I would have had no idea how to help you. And you, my friend, had every right to have whatever persona you wanted at that point. It's not like everyone always says, and I've talked with some really high level college coaches about recruiting and stuff, and they always say, like, everyone always blames the kids. But at what point are we going to point the finger at ourselves and figure out how to be better coaches, better communicators? How can we get them to let their guard down? How can we get them to feel comfortable with us? Right. And I went on mission saying, you know what? I'm going to do everything I can to help this person. And yes, that first practice, there's a little bit of lack of footwork. There's a little bit of stuff that I brought up. But as we've developed our player coach relationship, it got to a point where you and your brother and a couple other kids were like, hey, let's go to one of your former coaches out in Redding, California. And I know you remember that trip.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to talk to the listeners about the first time you get to those courts and you're warming up with some academy kids in Redding, California, and you might have been filmed during that warm up. Do you remember that moment?
I do. I actually, I remember some of the players from Reading. That was such a memorable trip. I remember how intense it was. I mean, we were there waking up early, getting onto the tennis courts, playing for hours, then doing conditioning, which was not my favorite. I remember being sopping wet after conditioning, looking like you just jumped fully into a pool clothed and hopped right out without drying off. That's how sweaty I feel like I was after conditioning sessions. And then back to more tennis. And then those 4x4s where it's basically suicides on 1 court, 2 court, 3 court, 4 court, 4 times. I remember that very vividly. And it was intimidating, honestly, coming in from being a country club player, having been a competitive player, but not at the highest levels, and maybe not at some of the levels that these other academy kids had been playing at, and just feeling like I wanted to show up and prove why I deserved to be on that court with these
Mhm.
people. That was always something in the back of my mind was, do I belong on these courts with these people? And trying to fight that doubt and just go out there and play your game, because it's when you get so in your head that you start to lose all of the things that make you a great tennis player, and mine was the mental. So times like that were hard to keep my mental and keep my confidence together
Mm.
when I felt a little out of my league.
Yeah, and it's hard because the whole point of an academy experience is to get out of your comfort zone, because a lot of our growth in life is far from what feels awesome in the moment. And I just remember the apprehension in the warm up. But what was so cool was by the end of that trip, I saw another level of confidence in you and demeanor in you to tap into that competitive nature that you knew you had inside the whole time. I saw you starting to turn that a little bit. And I want to jump right into, that was before high school. And then you really get to this high school setting where you have a tremendous opportunity with a great group of girls, a legendary tennis family as your coach. I'd love for you to talk to the listeners about how'd you feel going into freshman year?
I had an interesting experience going into my freshman year. For my entire middle school tennis career, I had Lisa asking on a daily basis, when are you in high school? When are you in high school? Please come play for me. Please come play for me. And I actually ended up enrolling at Douglas County High School, which when Lisa found out about that was not thrilled, and again reiterated nothing negative about Douglas County, but their team was not very good at that time. And with the exception of Clara, who was a fantastic tennis player.
Right. You might have been interested in an IB program.
I was.
Yeah.
That's why I was going to Douglas County, but it was actually a week before school started that I ended up transferring to Pondo, which is my home school, 10 minutes from where I lived. And it was a unique experience in that 8 of the 11 varsity players on the team the year before had graduated. So there was only 3 remaining varsity players left on the team. And there was something very exciting about that for me, in that we got to build my freshman year, and what could we build by the time I'm a senior, and what could I do to be a part of that. I felt there was an opportunity for me to be a singles player as a freshman, and that was important to me. I'd always been a singles player, and that's what I wanted on my high school team. And not only that, but an opportunity for me to turn the team into what I wanted it to be. I could be a leader. I could be one of the better players as a very young freshman going onto a varsity team. And that was exciting to me. I like the prospect of getting to turn something into what I want it to be. And that's exactly what opportunity there was at Ponderosa, which is why I switched when I did. And I had a coach who was so excited to have me. I mean, I wanted to play for somebody who was as excited to have me on their team as I was to get to be a part of a team.
Yeah, and it's just unbelievable. I mean, Lisa D'Amico, who is Kellen's mom, Krista's mom. I mean, just an incredible tennis family, and then the Parker community. I mean, Ermi as well. It's just an unbelievable opportunity for you, because there's not a lot of high school kids out there that get former college players as their coach. And she had a tremendous Division II career from what I understand. So I would love for you to you kind of get acclimated that freshman year, and you're part of this kind of next generation. When it came to competing against other schools and the position that you played, do you remember much about your success that freshman year?
I do. I remember my record from every I played. So my
Pretty
freshman
easy to remember it.
year, I did go
Yep.
That freshman season. And for me, a big part of that was I had never lost a high school match, and I wanted to keep being able to say that I had never lost. And once you add one more, you're at 5-0, you're at 6-0, then the pressure starts building, because I've never lost one. I've never lost a high school tennis match, and I want to continue to get to say that. But it obviously got harder as I went to keep adding those numbers to the front half of that scoreboard.
Right.
And I mean, my very first match ever, I remember so distinctly, because my team was tied 3-3 with whoever we were playing at that time. And it came down to my match at 3 singles for the overall team win, my very first high school tennis match that I played. And that was a high pressure match. I did not want to come in and be this freshman at 3 singles, and it all falls into my lap the very first game, and I blow it. And I had a really frustrating match. The girl on the other side of the court was not calling the best lines. We had to get line judges out there. I mean, it was intense, but I live for the intensity of it. I like getting angry and getting just amped up against whoever I'm playing, because that's when a lot of people either make or break their games, in the sense that you either fall apart or you fall together. And that's where the mentally tough people fall together, and people who haven't focused on that side of things tend to fall apart, because they're so used to winning, and they're so used to not having their backs against the wall, that they don't know how to handle it when they get there. So I loved being in those moments, but that was my very first match. It was just this moment of intense pressure that I felt like it was all on me to either win or lose, and losing was not an option.
Well, I just remember falling victim many times, because coincidentally enough, somehow I go from that assistant coach role at Regis to where the head coach steps down the following year, and I'm in the Continental League with Ponderosa High School. And here I am for a few years having to go to battle with you and being a part of some of those matches, to where it was maybe 3-3. And then it comes down to Claire's match, and there's Claire winning the match. And there I am in tears, and like, these aren't tears of joy. These are like, oh man, my team just lost, but I'm happy for Claire. But no, I remember that all too well. And I think it would be neat knowing what your role was. I mean, your role on that team, in my opinion, was everyone relied on you. They knew what they were going to get from you each and every practice, each and every match. And I know you might have probably felt some of that pressure your freshman year, but as you got into like your sophomore, junior year, did you start embracing that role?
Oh, absolutely. And I would attribute a lot of my tennis mindset to my dad, because I grew up with a stay-at-home dad, as you know. He was the one that took us to tennis tournaments, took us to practice, debriefed after matches, which we all love debriefing with the parent in the car after. But he really started us off the right way. And a lot of those moments of where I felt like I was a leader on the team came from what he taught us, in that you show up to practice every day and you don't walk off a court with any balls left on the court. You don't walk to pick up balls. You go run, you go be a leader. And you work the hardest out of anybody on that team, and that motivates everybody else around you to work harder. And I felt like my role as a leader and as a cheerleader on that team was very important. And I did not take that lightly whatsoever. I did feel very much like I had the responsibility to set the tone. And that tone comes in many forms, whether it's how hard we're working, whether it's how loud we're cheering for our teammates, whether it's the attitudes that we carry when things don't go our way. That all came, I would say, first on my list, to the point where as I developed as a leader, I didn't even feel the pressure because it was not as big of a priority on my list as some of these other things that I was paying attention to. So it almost got pushed to the back burner to where it didn't feel as much like pressure. It was just the expectation of me. I knew my role on the team was to go win my match and then do whatever I can to help anybody else on that team feel supported and like they had cheerleaders rooting them on for their tough moments. And I knew that I didn't have the time to put that pressure on myself, because I just had to get in, win my match, and then go do what I could for the other people on my team that I felt like needed extra cheerleading and support.
Yeah, and the high school environment fortunately provides that opportunity. And it's unique because a lot of court settings, it's typically 6 courts and there's 7 matches. So you usually have a team that's off that's cheering on the first 6. And as matches end, you're cheering on the remaining courts. And that camaraderie of building up one another, I'm sure helped your teammates get through a lot of matches that they've never been able to get through on their own, right? And so you develop this leadership role, you develop a lot of perseverance and discipline and mindset. But then you get to this point and it's junior year, the season ends. You've had a lot of success as a regular season tennis player. You had to kind of lick your wounds a little bit as a postseason player. And you had one more year of this, but you didn't have a state title yet as an individual. And you believe that your team didn't maximize its opportunity as a team. And I remember this point in my life, I'm actually beginning to transition out of full-time coaching. I'm putting on my sales hat and trying to do a career that's better for my family and to be around my kids more often. And I remember getting a text. Hey, let's go get a cup of coffee. Do you remember sending me that text? And do you remember what your mission was going into your senior year?
I want to join state.
Yeah. And I think at that point, it was a really unbelievable testament to hear that from you, because I knew you wanted to be a great high school player. I knew you wanted to be a great teammate. I knew you wanted to be a good player at Ponderosa. We didn't talk about state championship much. And I don't know why we didn't, but I think it was for a divine reason of it wasn't the right time to talk about it, because there had to be a lot of alignment that had to take place in order for that to be a conversation. But I would love for you to walk the listeners through not only the decision that you wanted to be a state champion, but what were some of the preparations that you did outside of your high school practice before that season began to get ready?
Well, first I'd like to start off with what really got me to that place, because it was a very hard time in my life for some personal reasons. I, at that point in time, had really struggled with my mental health and was just not in a good place mentally. I was going through a period of depression. I was not very motivated for a lot of other factors in my life. And I kind of came to this moment of clarity where I said, okay, well, if I'm going to be unhappy, I might as well be a really good tennis player. And when all of it was said and done, it was really that work that I put in during that period of time that helped me find my happy place again and helped me find my motivation and my reasoning for being here and for being the type of person that I am. And it was not an easy time or decision, but I needed something to go for. I needed a goal. I needed a purpose. And I didn't have one at the time. And I decided that that would be my goal. That would be my purpose, that I needed something to work towards. And that was what I decided to do. I knew I had a chance. I didn't know how great that chance was of me reaching that goal, but I wanted to see if I could do it. And I needed something to try to do. And I decided then and there, I want to go be a state champion. I have the time and I have the motivation and I have all my eggs in one basket. I really did at that point in time say, I want to put my time and energy into being this great tennis player. And we started our practices that we would do outside of Ponderosa, where we would meet at, I think it was 5 a.m. And we would do conditioning until the sun rose. And then once the sun rose, we got to hit balls. And for me at that point of time in my life when I wasn't really in a great place, I found the thing I looked forward to was getting to see the sunrise. And it was in being awake before everybody else and putting in work and feeling like I had accomplished something before my day had even started. Everybody else was just getting to school and we had already done 2 hours of work before I even walked in those doors. And that all just helped me get back to a place where I was motivated and I was happy and I was just in total alignment to become the tennis player that ended up winning state that year.
You know, it's a unique theme of what we've talked about today. When I was at the fence in that 3 singles match at Regis with Kate, she came to the fence broken. When you texted me and said, hey, I want to go win a state championship, you were broken.
Yeah.
When I was 17 and a half graduating high school and I was voted most likely to be single forever, I was 5'10", 325 pounds, and I didn't feel so good about myself. I was tired of people making fun of me. I was broken. And I knew when I got that text from you, I knew that I was equipped in that moment to be exactly what you needed to be in that moment in time. Now, where I applaud your vulnerability here is someone that has the success that you had in high school tennis. There's not a lot of people that have won as many matches that you have. There's some people that are just happy to win a match, to win a point, to win a game, right? What about that senior year before you got to the state championship? How did you approach each one of those matches, knowing that you were equipped with something different that you've never had before, but you had it now? I'd love for you to speak to what were some of those attributes that helped you along the way.
I would say one of the biggest things that changed my senior year, which, to preface, my senior year, I had my worst record in high school tennis. I went 8-2 my senior year, but what had changed was I was less focused on having a perfect season and on winning every single match. And I was more focused on being ready for the end goal. So when matches weren't going well, it was not about how do I turn this around to win it. It was what do I need to learn from this match that I can't repeat in the future. I mean, there were days where I couldn't serve, and it's not how do I get my serve back for this match? It's what can I do to win points when my serve is off, because it's going to be off sometimes.
Mm.
And sometimes I'm not going to be able to turn it back on. I'm just going to have to work with it turned off. And it's figuring out how to get into the other player's head on the other side of the net. And I got so good at getting in people's heads. And I practiced doing it. I mean, you don't just walk on the court and know how to tick somebody off, but if you try, you can get really good at it. I mean, not that I'm recommending anybody do this, but I did used to have all three balls in my hand. And when my competitor was serving, I would say, do you want the third ball? They would say, if they said yes, then I'd say, okay, and put it in my pocket like I misheard them. Or if they said, no thanks, I'd say, okay, here you go. Again, like I misheard them. But it was little things that I kind of picked up over time where I just knew how to outlast the other person in whatever way I needed to, whether that's hitting 100 balls back in a row, but no winners, just getting them back on the other side of the court. Or, I mean, just hitting all forehands, because I've figured out they hate their forehand or they love their forehand. So I hit them 100 backhands in a row, and here's the forehand they're so excited to get that they try to hit the crap out of it and miss. And so it's figuring out different personality types, figuring out how you can beat different types of players. And I focused more on picking up little lessons each match than I did caring so much about winning every single match.
It's really telling your ability to take maybe those moments where you were playing matches years before and your serve got away from you, and maybe mentally and in some of those postseason matches, or instead of trying to play the mental chess match, you're really kind of playing against yourself. And you and I both know that 2-on-1 tennis is no fun. And for you to be able to be honest with yourself enough to say, I needed to instill some more positivity into my game, maybe instill some positive affirmations. If things don't go my way, problem solve. How am I going to figure out in a positive way? And it probably was a trickle effect, not just on the tennis court, but in your day in and day out. How did this goal setting, this problem solving on the court help you in your life in that moment?
I think it helped me tremendously. I was at such a low point, and I don't think that I'd ever really looked back and reflected on the timeline of it all and how everything lined up. But it was when I started putting my goals first and working towards keeping that positive mindset that the other areas of my life seemed to fall more in place. I feel like I was probably just a more positive person to be around. I started my day off with an accomplishment that puts you in a certain mood for the rest of the day, to where you're happier, you're more engaged, you're motivated to accomplish things for the rest of your day. People like to be around those type of people. Getting myself to a better mindset brought really great people into my circle and into my life. I think that those people helped motivate me. And I know, Deca was a big part of my high school career. And I think that being the kind of person who's motivated and who works on their goals and getting there inspires other people and makes other people want to spend time with you, and primarily spend time with that mindset, because it is a mindset that everybody does want, is to be motivated and to have goals and to be working on reaching them. And starting that for myself started that ripple effect of other people around me being motivated and other people around me believing that they could accomplish things and working towards accomplishing things. And it just had this massively positive impact on my life and on my friendships and on even my academics. I just felt happier throughout the day that I had my own personal goals and things that I felt good about my progress on, that I felt good about even just working on.
Yeah.
And it just insanely helped my overall confidence. Just that one little piece and all of the things that it created.
Yeah. To get to this point now which I believe it was one of the most remarkable 3 days of tennis that I've ever witnessed. And I want to go to that moment, state championship, senior year. I want to start with a quote, and I want you to talk about how this quote set the tone for how you approach that tournament. With that said, the quote is something that you know well. Ever tried, ever failed, no matter, try again, fail better. There was a lot of lessons learned in 3.5 years of high school tennis. And you get to that point. What was like for you taking the court at the state championships?
Wow. I wrote down in my journal, actually, at the beginning of the entire season, I am going to win a state championship. And I owed it to myself and all of the work that I had put in throughout the entire season to really go for it and to really believe that I was capable of it. That was step one for me, was just believing that I was capable of being a state champion. And I walked into that first match confident. I knew I was going to win because I planned on winning the whole thing.
Did you win regionals going into state?
Yeah.
So you had a good seed going into state.
Yeah.
You roll that first match, and then you play the second match that day. Do you remember that one?
I was so in my head that match. They put me on the court that I had been knocked out of state on my freshman, my sophomore, and my junior year. So every single year prior to senior year, I had been knocked out of the tournament on the same exact tennis court. And that was the court I was playing on for my second round, my senior year.
So you come in with all this confidence, you're journaling, I'm going to win it all.
Yep.
You have this mind trick played on you. What'd you do to overcome that?
I said, I am going to beat this flipping court. I am so sick of getting knocked out on this court. I was grateful that they gave it to me my second round, because I still had enough confidence that I could get through that round. But man, I was not thrilled when I saw that that's where they put me. And it all comes down to timing, right? It's just whoever finishes whatever match is, because I'm the second round on the first day. So I was just watching the other matches and praying that one of the other courts would wrap up first. But I think that being put on that court that I had been knocked out on 3 years in a row and overcoming that was an actual advantage to my confidence, because it was a beast that I had not been able to beat yet. There was something about that court, and overcoming that court, I think, was just that last little bit of fuel that I needed to really push me through the end.
All right, you play a semifinal match as you said, it was rather interesting, wild. So walk the listeners through third set semifinal state championship.
Gosh, third set. I think I started losing pretty quickly. I might have been down 2-5, and then there were multiple match points throughout me working my way back up to even to the point where I could play a tiebreaker in the third set. But there was one specific reason I really wanted to win that match, and it was to knock Cherry Creek out of the tournament. So we had played a scrimmage against Cherry Creek that season, and I got my behind handed to me.
You get to the tiebreaker and eventually win that match. What did it mean for you in that moment, for not just you, but for Ponderosa High School, for your team, for the Parker tennis community? What did it mean in that moment to overcome Cherry Creek?
So the thing was I actually didn't play Cherry Creek in that match. Well, I played the girl that had beat Cherry Creek.
Oh, there you go.
And I didn't want to play Cherry Creek. And so the way that those tournaments work, if I'm playing that girl in the semis, if I win, whoever she has beat on her way is now knocked out for good. If she beats me, then her Cherry Creek girl that she had beat basically keeps following along and keeps having a chance to at least get third.
Right.
And that was when I
back.
got third.
Yep.
Yeah, my freshman year.
Got it.
So I thought to myself, after 3 hours of playing this girl, the last thing in the world that I want is to play who she beat to get here, which was Cherry Creek. And so I was beating her so that I didn't have to play Cherry Creek. She wiped the court with me the last time we played. I actually took a picture of the girl I played at Cherry Creek, and I printed it out and put it on the back of my door, so I saw her face every day when I woke up. And that whole season, I was like, I'm coming after this Cherry Creek girl. And then I got the opportunity to knock her out without even playing her. So it was really more so me playing against this ghost imaginary person that I may not even have to play. That was my motivation. And I mean, it was a 3.5-hour match. That match meant more to me than the finals actually ended up meaning, because it was really the epiphany of me calling myself the comeback queen. I mean, I had to be my alter ego. I had to fight for every single point. And the cool thing about tennis that I've always loved is the match is not ever over until it's over. You play football, you play basketball, there's a clock. You run out of time. There's a certain amount of points that if somebody is ahead of you, you cannot come back from. And that's not tennis. You could come back from being down 0-6, 0-5, love 40. You could do it. And I just kept telling myself it's not over till it's over. Just 1 point at a time, 1 point at a time. And that match just was kind of the summation of what I felt like my tennis career was, which was being the comeback queen. And it was just a cool moment. A lot of people watching.
Yes.
It was a really, really fun one for me.
Yeah. And I know that momentum built into the state championship. I believe I was there courtside to watch that one. I know there was a lot of ups and downs in that match. Do you remember some of those special moments that came from that last match of your high school career?
I do. First off, that first set, 0-6, in, I think, no more than 20 minutes. It was one of the fastest sets I had ever lost in my life. And it was the finals, and it's supposed to match, and I'm giving these poor audience members not one bit of a show.
Well, right. And to frame it for the listeners, you're playing against, again, somebody that 9.5 times out of 10, and I believe she went on to play college tennis as well, is going to beat you. She was a tremendous player.
Yeah.
But for some reason, you kept yourself in it. And the comeback queen does one of the greatest comebacks, and I believe in Colorado high school tennis history in a final. I mean, I don't know who loses 0-6 and then comes back. What happened that second set for you to even give yourself a chance to play a third set?
Second set really decided to use my brain. I mean, she was, by all counts, a better tennis player than I was. And I went back to the one thing that I felt like was my advantage over everybody, which was my mental ability to, one, not give up, and two, just outlast the other person's willpower. And in that second set, I started trying to outsmart her. And I just started paying attention to her game and what I could actually do to break it down, trying to find the gaps, trying to find her flaws, which she did not have many. So it took me a set to do.
Right.
But Maddie, I'm sure you remember, had a powerful forehand.
Yeah.
I mean, you gave her a forehand and the point was over.
Yep.
And she could move her feet too. So she made forehands out of balls that should not have necessarily been forehands. So what I eventually figured out to do was to hit backhand, backhand, backhand as many as I could in a row. And her backhand was good. It was consistent. It was not her winner shot, but she was going to get her backhands back to my side of the court. So what I would do is I'd hit her as many backhands in a row as I could, and then I'd tee up a forehand for her. And I knew that she had been getting so impatient for her forehand that when she finally got one, she was going to try to hit the crap out of it.
Yeah.
And that was when she started to make unforced errors. No. And as soon as I started cutting into her forehand confidence, the more forehands I could give her while creating unforced errors, because she got out of her rhythm, because I made her hit 100 backhands and a forehand. So by the time she got that forehand, she had lost all sense of rhythm and all sense of confidence in that shot. That was her go-to. So that was where I really started to take over in the second set. And then before you know it, we had tied the sets up and going into our final set.
I mean, with that type of up and down match, just be honest here. When did you know you were going to win?
After the second set.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because I won the second set that I knew I was going to win. It was because of her reaction after the second set that I knew I was going to win. I was neutral. I was back to a clean slate, and now this is just a one-set match. I could tell by her demeanor that she had already beat herself. She was so upset that I had gotten that second set that she wasn't even thinking about beating me in the third set. She was just mad that I had gotten the second one. And she actually stormed off the court after the second set. And that was the exact moment that I knew I was going to win, because I knew that my mental was there and that I could keep it there for the remainder of the match. No matter what she threw at me, I knew I had gotten enough into her head that I could win.
Yeah, it's astonishing to see how this process that you've been through gets to this point, and all of the steps along the way. Every step had a purpose. Every step had a plan that was perfectly in alignment for the type of opponent you were playing, the type of situation the match was. You losing that first set tough, you winning that second set, one set battle. Claire, the ball bounces. The match is over. You are a state champion. Do you remember that exact moment, and what did it mean to you?
I do remember that moment. I started sobbing. It was a very cathartic moment for me. I always knew that high school was the end of my tennis career. I knew that beyond that, my focus was going to shift to other things. I played club tennis in college, but I wasn't a competitive athlete after that. And it was my last, not only high school match, but my last competitive tennis match and my last moment as a part of a team and my last moment as captain of a team. And it's almost like every moment of my tennis career just flashed in one montage at the end. Like, this is it. This is what all of my practices, all of my early mornings, all of my dedication was for. And that moment and how proud I was of myself in that moment was worth all of the hard times and all of the struggles and all of the moments where I pushed my body beyond what I wanted to. It just all made it worth it. And I had reached my goal. I mean, it felt surreal, to be honest. I had my family and friends around me. I had my coach with you. I had my coach with Lisa. I mean, it was just such a special moment for me. Something that I really would not exchange for the world. I mean, it was really special.
That's so awesome that we got to walk back through that moment with you. And it leads me to one last question, because I think it's important opportunity for you to reflect back a little bit and take such a euphoric moment and kind of share some lessons learned. Let's say you're in the Dallas, Texas area and there's a high school tennis state championship going on, and you see a freshman that's out there and trying to figure out their way, and they lose a tough match and they're sitting on the bench, and you can just see that they have the weight of the world on their shoulders, and you don't know what's going on in their life. You don't know what's going outside of forehands and backhands, but you see someone that's upset, and you had an opportunity to sit down with that person on the bench. You get an opportunity to give advice. What advice would you give them based off of what you've learned in your moment?
I would tell them to find ways to make a loss not a total loss.
Mm.
And there are lessons and there are things to be learned, especially from our hardest moments, that are a lot of times worth more than some of the takeaways you get from winning. I have grown by far the most in my struggles than in my moments where everything was going well. So you really find those things that are so, so valuable in those moments of desperation, in those moments of loss and of sadness. And those are the things that if you find and if you do something with them, they make those losses more valuable than wins. I really do believe that. From a loss that makes it not feel so much like a loss, it makes it feel more like a lesson, because that's really what losses are, is they're lessons.
It's so well said, and something verbatim that I share a lot on a daily basis is you're not losing, you're learning. And being able to have that perspective after everything you've been through and getting to that moment of being a state champion. Claire, again, Mount Rushmore of Ponderosa tennis. What a unbelievable story. What an unbelievable perspective that you have. I'm forever grateful for the opportunity to being able to be allowed to be a part of your life, to listen, to help any way I can, and to have those moments of perseverance, determination, and grit lead to what you experienced. I'm so proud of you. I know the listeners are going to be impacted by this tremendous journey that you've been on. And for that, I can't thank you enough for spending a few minutes here with me today on the BTB project.
Well, thank you. And I can't thank you enough for the impact you've had on my life, both in tennis and personally. Thank you for having me and for everything you've done for me and everything you're doing.
What a tremendous story and journey we just went on with Claire. And to be vulnerable to talk about those mental health struggles is my big takeaway from not only this particular episode, but all the episodes that I've been able to have interviews for the BTB Project. Claire's vulnerability is where her true strength lies. And it's really telling to me on how, no matter what the circumstances are, for our ability to always speak to where we're at, always speak to the current truth that we're facing in our lives allows us to do things that are extraordinary. And I challenge you as the listener, what are some things that you're struggling with right now? What are some things that just make you feel like you're not good enough? Or some pain or suffering? I don't know what your story is, but I know that that is going to be catapult to what you're capable of doing as you voice it to somebody else. So my challenge to each and every one is be vulnerable. Put it out there with someone that you trust. And I guarantee the outcome is going to be no different than Claire being able to lift that state championship trophy. Listen, if this episode inspired you, do me a favor, like and subscribe to the BTB Project. I'm going to continue to provide special guests, amazing content, and really talking points that are true to what we're going through in life. At the end of the day, it's about community. And I'll always say that impossible is nothing. But those deep, dark, challenging moments in life are tough. And you might feel that you're trying to navigate the right time to say them. Well, I believe the right time is now. So let's be vulnerable. Let's find support. And let's continue the mission together. I'm proud of each and every one of you. And thank you so much for checking out today's episode.
You're told I'll be your heart, temptation.